Back in September, I spoke to teacher Kevin Lister, who'd been sacked after he refused to use a student's preferred pronouns. Kevin had taught maths for 18 years before he was dismissed for gross misconduct. A biologically female student asked to be referred to by preferred male name and he/him pronouns, but the teacher said he wanted to speak to the 17-year-old's parents first. Kevin is taking the college to an employment tribunal, and he joins me now. Kevin Lister. Kevin, just giving us a brief background to what happened in your case. Can you just give us a bit more about that, what actually happened to you?
Sure. So I'd raised two safeguarding concerns. One was about my student who wanted to transition. I asked if we had parental consent, if she was making an informed decision, and if there's a risk that she would self-medicate with online, easily available cross-sex hormones.
Yes.
The college response to that within 3 days was to say that they would not contact the parents. They did not want to out the student, and they also told the student how to go about changing her name on the college system.
Right.
The second safeguarding concern I raised followed a transgender training program, and it related to teachers in the college who were basically trans activists and who had claimed in the presentation, in the training course, that they had been encouraging and directing students to transition.
So this is a problem, isn't it? My understanding is that from the age of 16 up, people have the right to do whatever they want. They are considered medically competent by law and don't need consent from parents. So how does that lead?
Yes, so medically competent is what medics do. I'm a teacher. Teachers teach. And if someone wants to get medical treatment, then yes, then you know, over 16, then a person can then move to various types of medical consent.
Yes.
So if a patient goes into a hospital with appendicitis, for example, and the patient says, "I don't want you to operate on me," the doctor will operate anyway because it will kill them. So consent is a very, very difficult thing to actually define. But you, as an 18-year-old, up to the age of 18, you cannot consent, for example, to a tattoo, because a tattoo is not considered to be a medical treatment. In the same way that a young person up to the age of 18 should not be able to consent to transitioning, because it's just beyond what
But that's a different question. I mean, by law, they can consent to that. That's the thing.
The law is not at all clear.
Isn't there an issue here, really, about compelled speech? I mean, you're dealing with teachers being asked to use pronouns that don't match biological sex, and of course most of us use pronouns according to biological sex, not according to gender identity. So for you as a teacher, a member of staff, to be told, yes, you have to use that name, these pronouns, isn't it really about free speech?
Exactly. It's two things. It's free speech, it's compelled speech, and it's also student safety as well. And it was a student safety angle that I was approaching this from.
Yes.
You know, I raised the safeguarding. You know, the initial training and the training that we get every couple of years is if you think there is a concern and you have reason to believe that there's a risk, then you raise a safeguarding concern. Now, all the evidence is that if you transition, the outcome is likely to be bad. There is no evidence that transitioning is something that will enhance a person's life. The consequences are invariably life-limiting and life-shortening. It's inherently a safeguarding issue, and you know, hence I raise a safeguarding on the basis of that.
Is there also an issue of professional conduct in terms of if teachers are being asked to lie to parents, that can cause a problem? I mean, I can give a personal anecdote. A teacher friend of mine recently told me that a student had transitioned and the school had told him to use the biological birth name on school reports back to parents, but in the class to use the name that the student wanted. So you are asking teachers to lie.
Exactly.
And that does cause all sorts of problems.
It's completely unethical.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's effectively the position that the college wanted me to step into.
And how widespread do you think this is?
It's all over the place. The college had a gender reassignment procedure, which basically, in a kind of convoluted way, in the back of an appendix, gave that as an instruction for teachers to follow. And you know, from what I understand, with other teachers in the college, they are still batting against the same problem.
So what was your relationship with the student like? I mean, you must have found a way to explain why you didn't want to use the terms that were being asked of you.
I didn't. I had one discussion with a student at the end of a class. It related to her entry into a female female maths competition. And I said to her, you need to be really careful about this. It's potentially a high-risk decision that you are taking, so make sure that you are fully informed of the risks and you're not getting pushed into it by anybody else. That was the only conversation I had with the student. She went away from that and then entered the competition subsequently. So my interpretation of her action was that she was then starting to question the merits of her decision to transition.
So do you think there is a broadly affirmative approach to students who say that they are of the opposite sex or non-binary or whatever, and that there isn't really much conversation going on that could support a child's decision?
It is completely affirmative. So the one thing that I said, which was, make sure you're understanding on the risk and you're not getting pushed into this by anybody else, was then taken by the college as me having an age and appropriate conversation with the student, and I was not being neutral in my discussions with her. Meanwhile, throughout the college, there's the LGBT club, there's the health and sex education is all pro-trans. I've subsequently discovered that there's a transgender support group in the college as well.
But I can understand the need for, if a child is struggling with gender dysphoria and might have to be referred to a professional paediatric clinic, then surely those facilities ought to be in place for that person.
That would be true, but I would suspect that we don't have professional paediatric clinicians in the transgender support club. We would have groups or members of similar groups to mermaids and so forth. So when they have a transgender support club in the college, it would be giving a biased, positive view. Interestingly, the college had a gender transition plan, a gender transition policy, rather. It was up on the college's website. It's just been taken down this Friday. But that policy said that we had to celebrate, it used the word celebrate someone's decision to transition, and that staff had to be positive about it and so forth. And at the back is all the links to all the various transgender support groups. So there is nothing in the college's transgender reassignment policy, or the gender reassignment policy, that gives any option for a balance of view.
So the problem here is that there is an ideological position which is held by a minority of the population, which is being presented within schools as though there is a consensus on this issue.
Exactly, yeah.
And that means there is no discussion.
And there's no discussion. And any questioning of this ends up in the situation that I found myself in. Dismissal.
And would you say this is because of the influence of groups such as Mermaids and Stonewall and their sort of stranglehold on the education system?
I think so, yeah. I think more fundamentally what I've realised, I've had two major documents recently. One was from the DFE, the result of a whistleblowing review after my complaints went to the DFE. The other was from Swindon Borough Council, from the Safeguarding Department. Both of them have supported the transgender ideology and the transgender indoctrination in the college. So as well as the groups like Mermaids and Stonewall and so forth dropping this into the college, I think there's another more pernicious dynamic that's at play that we really haven't properly explored, and that is the regulating authorities actually becoming not just captured by the trans movement, but being active collaborators for the trans industry.
So where does this leave your case at the moment? What's next? So
the papers have been submitted to the Employment Tribunal. They've been now served on the college. The college has to respond by, I think it's the 15th of February. My first preliminary hearing with the judge is in June. The college has offered a settlement.
And this is New College Swindon?
It's New College Swindon, correct, yeah. So New College Swindon offered a settlement subject to a confidentiality agreement. But I've rejected that, largely because what I've seen of the DFE and what I've seen of Swindon Borough Council is that they are not capable of doing a proper investigation. So the debate really needs to be properly aired. So I really don't want to accept any confidentiality agreement.